thank you very much for joining today. Thank you very much for taking the time to meet with us and listen to what we have to say about Menubar and the rewrite of the user interface. My name is Genevieve Schwan. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at TrueChart or at HICO. I've been with the company for just over 3 years. As you can hear, I am not German or Swiss. I am a South African, but I reside in Switzerland. And yeah, I've been in the software industry for over 13 years, ranging from development, product management, compliance, key account management, and then I found myself here at HICO. With me today, I've got 2 colleagues, Derek Schleich and Dario Burman. I'll allow them to introduce themselves briefly. Derek.
Hi, so my name is Derek. I am the Scrum Master on the TrueChart team. I also head up the QA and support side of things, and then I do the product specs and designs for new functions and features, like you'll see today in the suite of software that we develop on. I've got about 8 years of experience in the software industry, ranging from client support to quality assurance to product ownership and now Scrum Master. And I've also been here for just over 3 years. Dario?
Ja, guten Morgen aus Zürich. Mein Name ist Dario Bodemann. Ich bin seit 3 Jahren schon bei der HICO, früher in einer Controlling-Rolle und heute in einer Account Management. Das heißt, ich kenne die Firma relativ gut in und out und bin unter anderem auch für Sie als Ansprechpartner.
Thanks, Dario. Okay, guys, just a quick overview of what we will be covering in the next, I don't know, 55 minutes or so. We're quickly going into the welcome and introduction. We'll go through the objectives, why we did this change and what we're doing, the changes that have taken place or will be taking place in Menubar. We'll go into a live demonstration of the actual software and how it will function, the next steps on the roadmap going further, the early access opportunities, and then we will conclude with any questions. With that, I am just quickly going to hand over to Dario.
Jawohl, die meisten von Ihnen müssten uns schon kennen, aber ganz kurz nochmal, wer wir sind, einfach, dass man das nochmal im Kopf hat. Wir sind ein Data Powerhouse, situiert in der Schweiz, sprich unser Hauptsitz ist in Ermetingen am Bodensee, aber ein grosses Office in Zürich. Haben die meisten von unseren Mitarbeitern aber in Deutschland, dort über das ganze Land verteilt, mit dem grössten Office in Singen, gerade auf der anderen Seite vom Bodensee, mit dem ganzen Backoffice. Und haben dann unseren dritten Standort in Südafrika, wo wir rund 20 Mitarbeiter haben. Die Hälfte davon ist BI Consultants, die andere Hälfte ist das Entwicklungsteam, das natürlich auch die Menubar entwickelt hat. Und dann noch ein zusätzlicher kleiner Standort in Singapur. Wir selber sind schon rund 20 Jahre in der Industrie. Unser Geschäftsführer, CEO, der Herr Schwan, ist schon vor der Gründung von HICO als BI-Consultant unterwegs gewesen. Das heißt, auch er bringt sehr langjährige Erfahrungen mit. Und sogar der Letzte, wir sind Inhaber geführt, das heißt, wir sind auch nicht anwesend oder nicht abhängig von externen Investoren, sondern können auch selber Strategien entwickeln und dann auch nachgehen, ohne dass wir da irgendwie auf externe Partner schauen und sind somit auch sehr agil, wenn wir mit Kunden arbeiten, haben wir da auf sehr spezifische Lösungen können, genau, drauf gehen.
Thanks, Dario. Just as a quick point of administration, if you have a question or you want to make a comment, please feel free to write us in the webinar chat. We will be monitoring this as we go along, and or raise your hand. Both are completely fine. Okay, with that, I'm going to jump into, so there's been a lot of noise about the new Menubar, what we're doing, but I thought it would be quite pertinent to explain why we are doing this and why we endeavored or went on this journey to change the user interface. So Menubar is one of our most successful products, but whilst the users and the client love the features, we had consistent feedback that the user journey and the onboarding onto the software is extremely difficult. It's a little bit convoluted, and people have a rough time teaching new colleagues to use it. And this has then stalled them in really rolling out and really using it to its full potential. So we took this on board and we spoke on how can we make this better. So we went out with 3 objectives. So one, Menubar has also been around for quite a number of years. So we would like to modernize the user interface, which I think is quite important for any piece of software, to do this intermittently every few years. We needed to simplify the user interface, simplify the ways that our clients and our users interact with our software, and then increase our user satisfaction. So these 3 things were top of mind when we went on this journey. But then we had to think a little bit broader than that and see what is our targets for our clients and why would we ultimately do this, because this is a huge effort and we need to understand what the benefit would be. So the first thing was increased user adoption. So this is not only for us to retain more clients, but also within our client organizations to have more users within a specific environment actually use the software to develop on. And this would be a lot easier for whoever the owners are of the specific piece of software to roll it out if the user adoption and the learning curve isn't so steep. We also would like to increase their efficiency, so higher efficiency, but not only in developing on Menubar, but also in actually consuming your dashboard. So when you use Menubar, the efficiency in which you can use and view your current dashboards in Qlik, this would increase your efficiency. The reduced learning curve, which I covered in when users actually need to onboard onto the software. Enhanced navigation, again, this goes both ways, both in actually developing, but also on the actual Qlik dashboards. Increase user satisfaction, which I think speaks for itself. And then creating a positive user feedback loop with our clients, our users, and our consumers. And then, as always, the underscore of all of this is always continuous improvement of the software, of our dashboards, and how we interact with our clients and users. This leads me into the next piece. We had a little bit of fear, I guess, amongst the user group saying, but the features we have, we absolutely love them. We use them every day. What will happen here? And the most important message here is the core is the same. So all the functions that you currently use, that you're used to, and that you utilize on a daily basis will stay there. It's really just the user journey. So the change from the current menu bar to the new menu bar would be replacing your extension, and all your current dashboards, everything that you've developed and invested in will still be there and function exactly the same way. The only difference would be your user interface and your interaction with the software when developing will be better and easier, but everything else will be exactly the same. So this is very important. Okay, but that then normally the next question is, okay, but then what actually changed? So that is the interface was completely redesigned. The user journey was completely redesigned, which Derek will show you guys in a little bit. We've introduced drag and drop functionality. We've introduced an interactive design process, which we will get into in a little bit. And then we introduced a licensing module, which I will explain a little bit later. So these are the main items that actually changed within the system. Okay. Important notes. The official release date will be the 25th of September 2024, so in roughly a month. We will be officially releasing this. The licensing module will be introduced, which we will be explaining in a little bit. And then the beta platform is still available. Why do I mention this? If you want to have a type of playground to test it out, to develop on it, where you don't have the full update, this is completely available. There are also versions where if you want an extension so that you can put it into your environment, in a testing environment to try and use it and see how it would go before you go into production, this can also be arranged. But both of these things, you would need to reach out to us so that we can look at it and then issue you with this access to the beta platform or to this extension. We look at this on a case-by-case basis. So it's just a side note that we are in our last sprint of small bug fixes and things, so you would need to bear with us just on those 1 or 2 things, but nevertheless, this is totally possible. Okay. On that, I will hand over to the piece that I think most of you actually came here for, is to see what it looks like and what will change. So with that, I'll hand over to Derek.
Okay, so you guys can see my screen, yeah?
I can see your screen, yes.
Okay, perfect. So here we have a general Qlik application. I haven't gone into massive detail in terms of the TrueChart visual that you see on here, but it is simply just to fill the void of space. We're going to first show you guys the legacy UI again, just as a little reminder of why we actually went on this journey, and then we'll dive into the new things. So first things first, we place our menu bar on the sheet. You'll get a new splash screen, which we'll ignore for the moment because we don't want to use the new fancy stuff yet. So in this old UI example, we are going to create a button and a single select. Now, when you're using an item that uses a dimension like a single select or a sense select or a field slider or a date picker, you need to first go and add all of your dimensions. Now, if you're going to be using multiple dimensions, this means that you need to already have an idea of what you're going to be using your menu bar for, and you may or may not add additional dimensions or miss one or two, in which case you have to go back to this properties panel here on the right to then manage your dimensions even further. In addition to that, once you've added your dimensions, they don't do anything. They just live within the container that is your menu bar, and only once you add them to an item do they actually start to work. So we'll start by adding a button, which is what we want to add. It's always the default, and then the second item will be our single select. So once you selected an item that is a dimension item, then you need to go and select the dimension that's linked to it, hoping that you added all the dimensions that you needed. And then you can configure the rest of your single select in this small but cramped space on the properties panel on the right-hand side. It's okay for a single select or sense select or items that are very flat in terms of their configuration, but it does make it a bit difficult when you start to want to add a bit more detail, like the icons and the globes. It's all very small and doesn't really use the space on screen that you have. If we're talking about a button, buttons have two tabs essentially. They have a general tab that has some vague options on there, and then you have settings, but in settings you have states or scenarios that we call them in new menu bar UI, and that also doesn't explain anything, so you have to expand another level of an accordion tab, and then you get to state settings, which also doesn't say anything about button settings. It's only at this level that you start to configure your button. And this is the prime example of why we decided to redo the UI. It's these multiple levels of accordion tabs in which you have to go and configure your items with very little description or intuitiveness behind it. And then you get to this screen where you configure your button and you have a bunch of tabs up here at the start, and we haven't even gotten to what the button is supposed to do yet. So if we grab a button here, we want to now say it's next page. Obviously, we have a little live preview here at the top, and we can add an icon and stuff like that. This is all fine and well. And then you get to layout, which is a bunch of additional options that aren't explained very well and also isn't very intuitive to the end user. In addition to that, you have style, which talks about the font and the border and the shadow, for example. And then lastly, you have colors. So all of these options are actually related to the appearance of your button. What does it look like at the end of the day? And there's no need to have it in a bunch of separate tabs for the user to go through. So if we change this here to a different color, just maybe change the icon color as well and the background to a slightly darker gray, we see that the preview here at the top updates. That's fine. But the moment you start adding hover colors, for example, it doesn't actually give you that preview. You may or may not choose very horrible colors to use, and then you don't notice it until you get to the analysis mode of the application, in which case you don't even, you only notice it after you've configured it, and you have to go back to the properties panel in edit mode and all those levels down in the accordion tab to then configure your button again. So it's kind of, it feels like reinventing the wheel the whole time. So here we are just going to go next sheet and page and then apply. So nothing here happens because we're in edit mode, and only once you go into analysis mode do you actually see the hover colors being applied, and your sense select obviously only works in analysis mode. Ooh, English is hard today. Okay. So then This is the old UI. There is quite a few problems with it, everything happening in the properties panel and everything being layers upon layers of menus that you have to open and close in order to configure your menu bar. So we decided we don't like this. We're going to do the new thing. So based on the button, we already knew that we could do a pop-up screen. The question is, how much of the pop-up screen could we do? So we basically took the entire properties panel and all its options and put it into a new UI. So if we click Get Started, you're welcomed into the new menu bar UI with a bunch of text about how we've changed things. So items are essentially what we know from the properties panel, and universal is essentially your general settings in the menu bar. So everything from its general colors to vertical or horizontal or collapsible or non-collapsible, those types of things. It's all available in the universal tab. But if you're like me, you don't read words, you just click continue because time is of the essence. Then we also have a graphic in place for you to at least know what to do next. So in the new UI, it is designed to work from left to right. You have your items on the left, you drag them to the builder in the center, and then you configure them on the right. So we'll start off by dragging and dropping a few items onto the screen. So maybe like a field slider and a send select and a single select, and all of these items are basically displayed on the builder. And you can even add some items like in our button container, we have additional buttons, for example, that you can drag in. In a normal group item, you'd be able to add other types of items into your group. In addition to this, you can also reorder your items in the builder. So quick and easy, no need to remove the items and add them again. And now we will get to configuring an item. So we've added our items. We've not needed to specify any dimensions or anything like that. We haven't had to go into 6 levels of accordion tabs in order to configure our items. This is essentially a high level preview of what your menu bar will look like. And if you select an item, you get to configure it. So here we have a button. We're going to make this one also go next page. It updates in the builder live. If you choose an icon, we can go right and let's choose this button or icon, for example. In appearance, you have everything to do with appearance. And you can also obviously specify some individual colors if you want. Otherwise, it will use the defaults that is configured in your universal tab. So if we go in here, we say, okay, cool, we want the font color blue, we want the background white, and we want the icon, let's make it red. So that's previewed live, and the hover colors here are the defaults. If I want to specify my own hover colors, let's maybe make the color black, the font black, the background white, and the icon color this bright blue. I hover over it, it changes the colors according to what you've configured. So no need for you to go into analysis mode to go see what your colors look like. All of that is displayed in the preview. Then on actions, we can go and choose, go to next sheet. So it's right here, and our action and button has been configured. So that's essentially a button straight from left to right. You cycle through all the screens and your button has been configured without needing to go into analysis mode or 6 million. It's a hyperbole, but a lot of accordion tabs. Then we get to items that use dimensions. So I mentioned that you don't have to add a list of dimensions into your item from the start. In the new UI, you choose your item and you choose a dimension that's going to be used with it. So if we choose type, if I can actually type today, because there we go, admission type, it will automatically apply the dimension to the item. The preview will update with its options, and you can go ahead and configure the rest of your item from there. So in general, if you want, you can change the colors, some individual colors, change the background to white, change the steps to a hot pink type of color. And then if you were in an analysis mode and being able to change the slider, then the colors there would change. And you can also update the label if you want. By default, we automatically apply the label of the dimension that you've chosen. So there's a one less step there. So you don't need to do that for each and every item. And this process is essentially repeated for each one of these items. It's exactly the same screens across the board. So if we choose countries here, let me just into the focus here, country, it is automatically applied, and you can go ahead and do the individual colors if you want as well. And that is automatically displayed for the user to then preview. What does this look like if you are using it in a horizontal menu bar? Let me just change this color to something less of an eyesore. In Universal, you can go in and change this to a horizontal, in which case the preview would change and your folder is now at the top. So you drag and drop your items to the top of the folder, and then you can configure them from there. Alternatively, we can switch it back to a vertical one because we're working with a filter type of minibar here, which in general is a vertical one. And then we still have our collapsible minibar, in which case you get a static button at the top that you can configure. So for example, here we can configure it to this icon, for example, and it will apply the icon for the collapsible button. Any questions so far? Because I feel like I've gone through this a bit fast. I don't see anything in chat or in Q&A. You can also raise your hand if you have a question.
Nothing at this point, it seems.
Nothing at this point. Okay. Cool beans. So here we have our minibar configured. If we click save, it's automatically saved there. Well, not automatically because you click save, but it's saved. And then if you go into analysis mode, it functions like the normal menu bar that we all know and love. So on the next page, for example, I have a menu bar that I configured before we even introduce all of these changes. And this one is, for example, a collapsible menu bar. They take a while to load because I need to load all the items and then collapse themselves. But essentially, your existing menu bars are not affected by these changes. And of course, they won't load now. I have a chat message. Ah, okay, it's Genevieve. Okay, that is essentially the new menu bar and its new UI. If you guys have specific questions on it, feel free to ask. Essentially, the journey of creating it has been updated and your existing menu bars won't be affected.
Okay, thanks, Derek. You done. Just share. Okay, you can see my screen menu bar, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, guys, just again, thank you, Derek. Please, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us on this platform or send us an email, or there's various ways of getting hold of us or through Dario. But with that, I'm going to carry on and just quickly talk about the licensing module. I introduced this a little bit earlier in the session, but I would just like to get a little bit more into the detail of what this would mean for existing clients. So what is it? The objective, we need to find a way to more closely manage the usage of menu bar. So we introduced the licensing module with this objective in mind. It's also planned to release with the new menu bar in September 2024. But what does this mean and how will this work? There will be a free versus paid version. The license will basically get baked into your extension when you download it through a registered URL. So obviously you have specific URLs on which you have your menu bar in a published state. So those URLs will need to be registered with your license. So we will have a client portal, which I will show you in a little bit, which you can register these relevant URLs where you use it, and then it will function in these spaces. What will happen if you are using an extension, either the free extension or the wrong extension with the wrong URL? The only thing you could still develop on it, all of that would stay the same. The only difference would be the moment you go into a published state, it will say that you are using the wrong extension and you would just have to replace it. The existing clients that are on the call, please don't stress. What will happen? Someone from HICO will contact you to get this information from you, register you, get you onboarded onto the user portal, and this will then be similar to any other upgrade process that you've done in the past, except that you would have your own specific download. What you can prepare in the meanwhile is the URLs on which you use a menu bar, as well as who would be the admin users. Who would you need to allocate this to would normally be the person that gets the job of updating your extension on your QMC or your management console. This is the person that would need access to this. So if you could just have those two things ready, this would be no problem at all. So what happens next? We will contact you to facilitate this before the official go live date. So what would this look like? The admin user that we mentioned earlier will have a login. They would get to this page, log in. They would have a page where the company would be registered. So argument's sake, TrueChart, the various users. So in some cases, they could be more than one admin user, depending on the space. The users would be listed here and can also be managed from here. Licenses would be issued. So the URL, this is very important that we register the correct URL. You would need to confirm the URL, and we will allocate the expiry date of the license here. It would be saved. And then from there, you can select for which URL you are downloading, the version you need, and then whether you are downloading for Qlik Cloud or Qlik Enterprise, as the two extensions are a little bit different from each other based on the environment. So that is the basics of the licensing module, and this is also a relatively large change from how we did this in the past. Do we have any questions on that? Derek, I don't know, I can't see the chat now. Is there anything incoming?
No, I don't see anything.
Nothing. Okay, also free to raise your hand if you have any questions, or if you have something afterwards, please feel free to then reach out to us then. We did keep a bit of time for questions. If there is nothing, I would like to just introduce a few other things whilst we have the opportunity and we have your attention for a few seconds. As you know, we're also working on TrueChart Plus. This is the other big project in the HICO development space that is ongoing at the moment. And we'd like to just update the users here on what is happening there. So I'm sure all of you've heard the objectives of it in the past: the self-service user interface, performance software, AI readiness, and cloud deployment. The main pieces here, similar to Menubar, but a little bit different because this is a complete rewrite from the ground, is that the software has become a little bit dated in terms of technology. It's a little over 10 years old. And we came together and said, you know what, we absolutely believe in the software, its capabilities, and what it brings, the business value that it delivers. But we feel it's time to refresh it and renew it and bring in more modern concepts, modern elements to it, and really make it ready for the next 10, 20 years. And this is where we brought this in. So the first thing is the user-friendly interface. Similar to Menubar, we had a similar problem where the complexity to onboard, to use, and to develop on it was a little bit high. So we decided we want to make it ready so that from your expert user or from your novice user all the way through to your expert users, everybody can use this quite easily. Then there were a few key things that people are asking us to add. Pivot table being right at the top of that list. With the previous technology that was used, this was absolutely not possible. But we went in now to make sure that we would have pivot table functionality. But based on the pivot table functionality, we will also be adding light planning. But then, of course, your IBCS compliant charts and tables, this will always be at the core of what we do. We've also always had commenting, but there were specific tables and specific scenarios in which you had to use it. We are now enhancing this functionality to be much smarter and more cohesive, also with multi-endpoint write-back, so that you can choose the endpoint to which you actually write the comments and not only in one database. We are also introducing multi-tenancy, which means that you could have deployments across multiple tenants, which was not possible in the past. It would also be quite much easier scalable and API ready. What does this mean? When is normally the next question we have. So we're busy with the architecture table and light planning. This we are busy with in 2024. From there, charts, AI integrations, etc., would be 2025. We are also planning this as a phased release. So in 2025, early 2025, we are planning to release the table with the pivot table and all the attached functionality to the table. And then the next phase will be released with the charts at the end of 2025, beginning 2026. So this is the high level plan of what we are doing. I did ask Derek to prepare a quick teaser for the pivot table and some of the functionality that we have introduced, just so that you guys can see what the team has been up to in the last while.
Okay. So first things first, you guys can see the screen.
Yes.
Okay, so this is in Power BI. We are still developing the extension for Qlik, but bear with me here. The interface of this will look very much similar in Qlik once we have that extension in place. So first things first, we drop our extension onto a sheet, and then we create our dimensions that we are going to use, and we add some measures. And lastly, we add our user ID. Then once you've placed your user ID, if you haven't done this before, you are greeted with a quick tutorial overview of this is where you add your data, this is where you can customize what the visual is going to look like, and this is also where the user guides can be found, and then you're good to go. So for those of you that know TrueChart Legacy, when you needed to build a grid, it was extremely complicated. It almost felt like you needed a rocket science degree to understand what's going on. But we've simplified this in TrueChart Plus. So you're always greeted by a single cell, but you can select a cell and split that into 4. You can drag and drop the resizing of the cells by dragging and dropping like this. You can introduce a row above or below. You can split a cell in 2. You can even merge 2 cells by holding Shift, and then essentially merge them up in your tree, and you'll end up with one big cell again. And for those of you that want to configure the visual in extreme detail, you can still do that by going into the grid editor, selecting a cell, and then configuring it in the same way that we had in Legacy. So that is the visual editor, so it's a lot faster to set up your visuals, or at least the layout of your visual. And for this example, we'll just use one cell, so one cell like that. And then on here, you can drag and drop the type of visual that that cell will hold. So your titles, subtitles, comments and buttons, time, structure, and multiple charts. But like Genevieve said, we're focusing on table for now. So let's put a table in there, and then you'll be greeted with a table on the screen. From here, we are going to actually change this over to a pivot table. And of course, live demos always have some glitches. So let me just do that again. Click save. Let's see. I'll go here. There we go. Then we make it a pivot table, and then you'll be greeted by a pivot table. So from here, you can reorder your dimensions that you're using. The visual will update live. You can drag and drop some columns over there, and then it will basically order them based on the business unit, and you have your values in separated by each business unit, for example, and you can configure the rest of your visual with additional cells from there. Genevieve? Or any questions? I don't see any hands up or Q&As.
Neither do I. I don't see anything. Okay, Derek, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Let me take over the screen sharing. Second, please. Okay, guys, so that is the summary on TrueChart Plus. There is quite a bit more. We didn't want to take too much of your time in showcasing this, but we do feel that this is quite exciting development, specifically on items such as only having a single table, having the pivot functionality, which is normally crucial in these environments, and bringing this all together. So we're quite excited to showcase this as we go along, and we will arrange webinars as we are ready to release the first table. So please stay tuned for more information on that. On that, I would also then like to take the opportunity to just remind everyone that HICO has a Vision Next Future event taking place in September in Frankfurt. Here are some of the speakers that will be there. We are quite excited specifically for Dr. Jürgen Feiss from the IBCS Institute. This is not so common to have these type of events where they attend, so please do join or sign up if you have not signed up yet. As you can see from the panelists and the people that will be presenting, we have quite the action-packed morning or day. Here is our agenda on the topics that will be taking place. So again, please do sign up if you have not. We're quite excited to see everyone. And that session will be mostly in German, other than today. So please do, and if you don't have the link to sign up, please reach out to us. We'd be quite happy to assist you guys in this. That then leads me to the conclusion of today's session. So just as a quick wrap up, I promised email addresses where you can contact or get in contact with us if you need any help or you have any questions after today's session. So the support@trueshot.com, that is always the general email address which the entire TrueShot team has access, or the relevant people at TrueShot has access, and will always be happy to assist you. Then my direct email address is also on the slide. Please feel free to reach out to me. The steps and what you can do from here. If you are interested, you can register to pre-test by sending us an email on one of those email addresses. You can prepare your URLs in the meanwhile that we would need to register for your updated version. You would then receive contact from the Menubar team in the next month to prepare your account and your URLs. You will receive the new extension and you can update your extension on your management console. So this is what will happen from here onwards. And that then concludes it. I will leave the slide up just for a few more seconds so that if you do not have these email addresses, that you can take them down or take a screenshot if you feel like it. And then please reach out to us. Okay, I don't know, anybody else, Dario, that you would like to add from your side?
No, I think that's all.
That's it. I'll open the floor once more. Anybody would like to add it? Comments? Do you like it? Not like it? We would find this quite interesting. If not, I think then we will close the session. Thank you very much for your participation. We really appreciate it. We're looking forward to engage with you in the future on this product and to get your feedback on what you think. Thanks, guys.
Danke vielmals und schönen Freitag und schönes Wochenende.
Tschüss, tschüss.